is often supervised by the makeup editor. He has already planned the general arrangement of the paper on a layout sheet and has selected a spot for the story among all the other.
We are drawn to objects that feel lived in, as if their very imperfections whisper a story we want to believe. This is the mythology of authenticity. The idea that something must show signs of time and used before it can be trusted with meaning. We look at an old photograph or a weathered book not just for what they depict, but for what they've endured, what Barth has called having been there. These artifacts don't prove truths, but they suggest continuity between past and present in a way that feels real. Our modern obsession with vintage aesthetics is less about preserving history and more about reenacting it through simulated nostalgia. The myth of authenticity is not new, it's just more precise now. Once, we relied on photographs to anchor us in a real past. Today, we rely on algorithms to simulate one. The patina machine doesn't age things naturally anymore. It produces inconsistencies in mass. Distressed furniture, retro font filters, and vintage. Lighting effects are not signs of history, but
back in the day, computers were room-sized beasts with punch cards and blinking lights, no screens, no apps, just raw logic.
In 1982, MIDI sequencers offered a perfect solution to an emerging problem. How do you make machines sound more like humans? These tools introduced humanization, algorithms that added tiny, random timing variations. It wasn't about making music worse, it was about making it feel more alive. The illusion of imperfection became as valuable as the skill behind it. In doing so, we began to trade authenticity for affectation, not just in sound, but across all media. While machines were designed to eliminate human error, they soon became tools for mimicking it. The logic was simple. If audiences trusted things that looked handcrafted or aged, then we could simulate those signs at scale. This isn't just about making the past feel present. It's about selling a version of nostalgia where everything seems touched by time, but nothing actually is. The paradox of the simulation is that the better it becomes, the harder it gets to tell what's real. If your machine can replicate every brushstroke or every crack in wood grains, then authenticity no longer relies on the object itself. It now depends on who made it and how much you're willing to believe they did it themselves. This commodified nostalgia is not about remembrance, but replication. A market of memory where everything feels old even if it was just created yesterday.
Allowed to legally block or halt dangerous AI models if they pose a threat to public safety.
Almost everyone has something musical to gain from the QY10. Remember, sections of this video can be reviewed as often as needed, and we would like to thank you for your time and attention.
Today's bots don't just use perfect grammar. They misspell words on purpose to pass as human, mimicking typos or dialects. They're not trying to be efficient anymore. They're trying to feel real. And the more our systems learn to detect these fakes, the faster new ones evolve to beat them. It's a spoofing arms race, and authenticity itself becomes the target. This isn't just about AI trickery. It's about how trust turns into a technical problem, not a moral one. Just this week, Anthropic's CEO warned about the dangers of AI. Development moving faster than our ability to regulate it. This isn't a new concern. What is new is how we've normalized fakeness as part of the system. Authentication systems now detect these spoofs, which only leads to more sophisticated counter-spoofs. An escalating cycle of mimicry and detection has replaced human judgment with algorithmic feedback loops. The trust we once placed in authenticity is now a signal being engineered into data points. What we hear in that footage confirms how deeply we've internalized the idea of progress through mechanizations. As authenticity becomes harder to verify, systems and people begin to detect fakes, and new fakes are made to beat them. This creates a loop where mimicry replaces truth itself, reducing what once seemed sacred, truth, to just another line in a signal processing pipeline. We're not just consuming fake memories anymore, we're producing them at scale.
In any one of thousands of test tubes of today, there may be 1 million job opportunities for tomorrow.
The nostalgia loop is a trap we didn't ask to fall into. Once you start selling time as a commodity, it gets sold back to you in second-hand vintage and AI curated memory. Authenticity isn't just faked. It's algorithmically optimized for emotional resonance. The past no longer belongs to history books, but to product descriptions. When a feeling of authenticity becomes indistinguishable from a well-crafted simulation, we've already lost the moment. We once had seasons of fashion, styles that aged and evolved. Now we have eternal eras, 1960s forever, or the future, frozen at the moment it was imagined. Time is no longer linear. It's a loop where pastiche masks itself as heritage. Jameson called this the nostalgia mode. when even contemporary settings feel like they belong to an eternal decade. Not now. Resisting the loop isn't about rejecting nostalgia. It's about refusing to let it be manufactured. To live without filters is to embrace inconsistency, the noise in the signal that makes life feel real. This is where Fisher's temporal split meets our lived reality. We can't see what technology has done to time. But if nothing feels new and everything echoes something else, maybe we must build new anchors. Not simulations of memory, but experiences of living.